Hello, MMA True Believers. I am Jason Burgos, and for this edition of Back Talk, I am joined by a man who will be fighting early in the morning on April 7th in Singapore, so that us lucky fans can watch him compete live on Bleacher Report. As part of the prelims of the first ever one on TNT event, on that night he will face off with Russian welterweight Raimond Magomedaliev. That's a hard one to say. In a fight that could very well be a title eliminator scrap. And that man I speak of is an activist and a fighter. And that is Tyler McGuire. Mr. McGuire, thank you so much for this time before your fight.
Happy to be here. I'm always happy to talk to you. So,
my pleasure, and I'm happy to have you here. Now, first, I wanted to talk about you working with the organization Fighting for Autism. I read the article, how it came about from the on the one website, talking about it and everything. Talk to me about how your work in special education brought you to this particular issue, and what is it about autism that made you feel, look, I gotta dedicate time in my life to bring further awareness to this important issue.
So when I was in college, small town in Mount Pleasant, Iowa, I was getting a degree in history, and I decided maybe I'd want to get an additional degree or accreditation in special education. And I ended up working with a couple kids that were voluntarily mute, and over the course of 8 weeks. And during my time with them, I actually got them. They actually courage or the ability to make small faint noises that were basically like a hello and bye. Wow. And I could just tell there was like a trust and like a bond there. And I realized like that really meant something to me more than, obviously, I care about all the kids, but like that just really meant something to me. And, and I have patience, for days for children with, whatever, learning disabilities or whatever. And I love doing it. So there's actually a job in my now wife's hometown that had an opening special education teacher, and it was working with kids with autism. It was starting the first program in Iowa, serving kids specifically in middle school in Iowa. And they had a great elementary school program. This is the next step for middle school. And I didn't know what autism was. I was like, well, sure. Like, I never back down from a challenge. I feel like I could do it. I love the special education community. Yeah. Let's do it. So through a lot of trial and error, I had 2 kids my first year. By the time I left after 3 years, we expanded to, I think, 5, maybe 6. I can't remember. But what was cool about that is I actually picked up MMA while I was doing that. And my then girlfriend, now wife, her cousin, Gabe Lemley, fought professionally. He has a winner like Clay Guida, so like, wow, this guy's a stud. I want to train, just because I played college football and soccer and all that stuff. I just wanted a reason to work out and put it on my bucket list. Tell my kids one day, your dad got into a fight in a cage, right? So I started doing that, and then one of the parents of the students that I worked with actually gave me a shirt, that green one that you've seen probably in some of the pictures, that very same one. That's Autistic Kids Rock. And I was like, you know what? Like, because I fought in like the general education or the neurotypical kids, if you will. They knew me as Mr. McGuire, the fighter and all that. And I thought, well, if I start using that, because we all want like inclusion and getting the kids in there, and just and the more people understand the neurological condition, the more acceptance there's going to be, right? Because ignorance is the enemy of anything people don't understand, right?
True.
They fear it, they don't like it, they're not sure what to do with it, right? So I thought, well, not only is this a big message, but it's a bright green shirt, right? So then I started, well, if I go to these MMA crowds, which, you get quite a diverse crowd, right? But I think for, Autistic Kids Rock, I'm like, okay, what is autism? What is autistic? And that was cool. And then it turns out, after every single fight, like a mother, brother, sister, dad, uncle was like, hey, I have so-and-so, that person they love with autism, and that's awesome that you're doing that. And then, what really hit home, I remember it was my 4th amateur fight. I took it on 2 days' notice. And I had a mom come up to me crying because her daughter had just gotten a diagnosis with autism. She didn't know what to do. She was scared, and understandably so, right? So okay, this is going to be my thing, right? If I've got, even in amateur fights, I've got 2,000 people watching. That's 2,000 people that are going to see this shirt. And I was winning, right? So it's like, those things kind of go hand in hand, right?
Yes. Yep.
Right. And then I got an opportunity to sign with one, and I realized, well, that's, now we're on the worldwide stage. So that's where I took that to the next level. And that's kind of been my, my thing, right? Because I am raising my daughter. My wife and I are raising our daughter up in a Christian household, and and that's really the thing is, what are you using this platform for, right? Are you using it for good, using it for self gain? And one of these days, and eventually my daughter's going to ask me and want to know, like, what did you do with this, right? So I'm trying to be a good role model for her. And luckily, it kind of ties right into what one stands for anyway, with it's integrity, character, and they're promoting this, right? So then fast forward to the Fight for Autism. I messaged them. A friend of mine I used to train with tagged me in one of their posts, and I messaged them just saying, hey, I'm a big fan. And I sent them some of the stuff. Like, if you ever need anything, just let me know. Like, if I can provide anything down here in Tucson, Arizona, I'm happy to do it. And they messaged me and they asked me to be an ambassador. I was like, well, of course. So then things have kind of rolled up. One has actually contacted them and going to do some swag giveaways, and I've done some interviews with some of their athletes, and because their whole thing is, people sometimes get wrapped around the diagnosis of autism and they forget, like, these are just kids, and they want to do the same things that neurotypical kids want to do, right? It's just a little bit different path, right? So, but in order to help them get there, we need to help with some of the things that people don't understand about it. What was even crazier is having people from Malaysia, Singapore, Jakarta, or Indonesia. They're messaging me.
Wow.
About how much that shirt meant to them as well, because in some of those places, again, people just don't know. So seeing it, millions of people seeing that word again, that's just, they might look it up on Google and then boom, like, that's one more person educated. So long story short.
And just for, people that watch this, listen to this, that, because I still think, even though I think the word autism is known now, people have heard the term, I think it's still a lot of people don't fully understand what autism is and the various complicated levels of it. If you could just kind of sum up, like, what is autism and what are kind of like obvious signs of autism, because maybe someone that hears is like, oh, my cousin, my brother has that, I didn't realize.
Yeah, so for those, well, first of all, those of you who don't know, April is World Autism Month. That's like the awareness month for it. But really, the best quote I ever heard is, if you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism, right? Like, it comes in such a different shade, right? So that's why that's actually on the spectrum, right? Yeah. So you've got anywhere from, like, lower IQ'd and nonverbal to very high functioning. You may not even know that they have it. They just may, like their social skills might be off, or certain sensory things. So the things really, like, and really the biggest thing you want to get out there is that the earlier the intervention, the better, right? There's different therapies out there, like applied behavior analysis. There's different reward systems. There's communication technology they're developing so they can learn how to communicate. But yeah, so I mean, it can be anywhere from just like what's called stimming, like flapping the hands, making noises, whatever it is. Or it could be just like a very specific interest. Sometimes it's almost like a Swiss cheese. Like, I had a kid I worked with who could tell you, like, the components for one of NASA's, like, rover
wow
spaceships, but he couldn't walk, right? If you asked him to walk home.
Wow.
Yeah, so if you talk to him, you would never really, like, there would be no, like, outward signs. So, and that's where, you see, like, the diagnosis, people are kind of panicking, like, oh, it's like 1 in 200. Now it's like 1 in 50. I'm like, well, no, they're just becoming better at understanding, and they're understanding what the spectrum is, right? And also that having autism isn't a death sentence, right? Look how far we've come with things like that, with like Down syndrome, right? You can have a very fulfilling life with this. It's just understanding that your path is just going to be different. If you have a child with autism, that path is just going to be different. So as far as what it looks like, it can be a myriad of things. But the biggest thing is just patience, understanding, and trying to figure out what works for them. Because in the end, like, they're kids or individuals that want to be accepted, right? Yeah. So that's the biggest thing.
You fought for the welterweight title in 2018, then stepped away from the sport for around 2 years to get back in the win column in December of last year. Now, talk to me about the reasons for why you were away from the sport for so long. Obviously, 2020 hurt most fighters in one that, in general, but also especially the American fighters. They just could not go over there and compete when they started getting going again. However, you still did not compete throughout 2019. Was it injury-related? Was it, you need to take a break, start focusing on other things? Well, what made that such a long hiatus until your recent comeback?
So going into that fight, I knew that I'd be on about a 10-month layover. So Juan and I, we had talked about it. We had talked about, if I was fortunate enough to win the title, I would be on the shelf for a bit until I could come back. And really, so at the end of 2019, I was getting back in the groups. I had a bunch of training to do for the military. That had just been the military's been very good to me and very supportive, and they let me kind of shift things to where I could like do all my training that I needed to do, because it was kind of like it was a solid, like, 6 to 10 month commitment that I couldn't break up. So thankfully, again, the Air Force worked with me, and they let me kind of move things around. So that was really the biggest factor. But also, I used that also time to kind of rehab some injuries. Going into that fight, I had some things I was dealing with, but that's private. He was a better man that night. So there's just things I was able to do over that time, and then I was actually ready to fight in like March, I think, of March of 2020. But then I was.
Yeah, the world changed.
I was talking with one. I was trying to get on. I think it was like the March 17th or March 27th card of 2020, and then obviously COVID hit, and then that's just So I just kept bugging him until Singapore opened up. They got the deal worked out with Singapore now where we could fight. Then fortunately I was able to get back in the cage. So that was really the other thing is. I didn't want to end my career. I don't mind ending my career on the loss. You know what I mean? Because eventually it all comes to an end, right? We're athletes. Father Time's undefeated. But I didn't want to end it on my first loss. You know what I mean? I want to show my daughter that because I am 35 now. I'm on the back nine of my career. And that was really my biggest thing of getting come back from that 2-year layoff. Is I wanted to that win was extra special because any fighter will tell you your first loss is the most devastating. Because you're no longer invincible. But again, it goes back to show my daughter like, hey, just because you take that L doesn't mean you have to stop. Like you can come back. So.
And I'm perfectly transitioned to where I was going next in terms of you bringing up, turning 35, which I think you turned in February. Happy belated birthday to you. It could be looked at as, like you said, the back nine of the career, stuff like that. So does that change things for you? Does it, or not change, but does it add an urgency to the fights and being active? Because everybody wants to be active in general, but to maximize the money-making window you have, especially after losing 2 years for various reasons, the military, stuff like that, is there urgency? Okay, yeah, you want to get gold. It would be great. You want to be champion. Who doesn't want to be champion? But it's about just getting as much fights as possible, maximizing that window, and making the money for, just to set up yourself for the rest of life. Do you feel like a different urgency now, 35, and I'm sure you don't want to do this until you're 40 and stuff like that?
No. Honestly, I've kind of talked to my wife, and I feel like I'm in the playoffs of my career. I'm taking it one fight at a time, because there is urgency, right? And I lost a year or two of my prime, due to military commitments, right? But that's a choice I make, right? The Air Force puts food on my table. This is just honestly this whole fighting thing. I just started to see how far I could go, right? And it's just kind of. I train like I should, but it's just like. I'm like, well, how far can I go? Well, I took my first pro fight in that. And then, now I'm in one. Let's see if I can beat Luis Sapo. You know what I mean? And then, let's see if I can win a world title. Right? That's just how I've approached my entire career.
Yeah.
So there is a sense of urgency. This is the last fight of my contract too. So obviously I want to. Yeah. So I want to put a statement out there as well. Because obviously in being that big push. I would say the more urgency is getting the fight prime time. In the United States, final fight on the contract, right? And trying to earn what I feel like I'm worth. Not that one is paying me pennies or anything like that, but it's just you fight for a company for a while.
Exactly.
You want to get the ladder, right?
Yeah.
And you only do that by performing. So, and again, because I am at the end of my peak earning years as far as MMA is concerned, there is that urgency, to get that to get paid. But honestly, more than anything, I feel like I'm one fight away from the world title, and if I can get the W next Thursday, Wednesday for the United States, Thursday for me, that I think that I'll be able to, get that shot. So I think I match up well with the champ. He likes to create car wrecks, and I do pretty well with that. So.
And you pretty much answered the question I was going to ask in the for the next thing was, did you feel this was a title eliminator? Because if you go to 4-1, the previous champion, there's a new champion, so there's a lot of reason to suggest, you should be in a title fight if you win this fight. So since you answered that, thank you for answering that event. So I'll switch the question then, and then I'll go to that, this being the last fight of your contract, which is very newsworthy stuff. Is the mind frame going into this fight getting that title shot, or is it I need to have a good performance to maximize my free agency opportunity? And do you feel like, look, and you should at 35, and with the value, if it's high, 4-1, do you really are fascinated to test free agency, and are all possibilities open? Are you preferring one because maybe they can offer a title shot, or it really is go with it, they pay you the best, and if that means coming back to the US, maybe it means Bellator, UFC, LFA, PFL, all those kind of things?
I'm pretty happy with one. Before I signed with one, I had offers from all the other major organizations. It's just I liked being a part of what one was trying to build. I like what they stand for. You know, what I mean, I'm not under pressure. Like, when I say go out and make a statement, like at no point is one behind. Because UFC kind of puts you behind the scenes, like go out and make a statement, get that knocked out.
Yeah.
Like they're centered around martial arts, right? So, and the fans appreciate that too, right? Like, think about like the Asian culture, like is a grappling martial arts centered culture, right? Like, you got judo, all these things. Like, so, as far as like free agency, I haven't really thought that far ahead. Right now I'm looking at Raymond in front of me, because I know that winning this probably does mean a title shot. I mean, all signs are pointing to it. So, getting the win, I'm not gonna, like if there's a title shot there, like it'd be kind of silly to resign somewhere else and have to start at the bottom of the ladder. I mean, you've seen what Chandler did, coming over to the UFC and all that, but like that's pretty rare.
Yeah.
So I feel like I've got a good relationship with one, but that's something that my manager then will have to work out as far as what it is. I mean, obviously, they'll get first dibs. I mean, it is because that's as far as being loyal, but at the end of the day, it's where's the gold and where's the money. So.
Fair enough. Now, let's talk about your opponent, Magomedaliev. He also has only one loss. It came to a fighter with a similar style to yours, with a guy with a strong wrestling base who can grind you down in James Nakashima. Early in the fight, he used like his sambo, made it difficult for James to take him down, but it seemed as the fight went on, James tried to grapple, mix it up where he could, where he had the opportunities and push the pace. He wore him down to where the takedown came easier for James by the third round. How much have you watched that fight, and does it lay a good blueprint to victory for your style of fighting?
Yeah, I mean, Nakashima, he's a different animal. Man, people don't realize he's small too. I think he weighed in at like 78 kilograms, something like that. Like, he's not a big guy. He's 178-ish pounds, I think, for that. So yeah, I mean, I think that anytime you look at like a striker versus grappler, there's always going to be that blueprint. But then you see what he did against Parati, and I know Parati personally. Parati's a stud, and then you see how he was able to defend those takedowns and give just elbow after elbow after elbow. And then I watched this latest fight against that Brazilian guy. I can't remember his name. Anyway, but that was kind of the blueprint of what not to do. I think that guy stood against the cage for like 30 seconds before Raymond put him out. You know what I mean? So I do think that the blueprint is there. However, Nakashima and I are a little bit different in the sense that he's a little bit more like static and methodical, whereas I'm a little more all over the place, if you will. The speed's a little bit different. So I do think that Nakashima did lay out kind of what needs to be done to handle him, because I mean, this guy, like, he likes space. He doesn't like to be crowded. He doesn't, he likes those rangy kicks. He likes to do that step back hook. Like, there's a lot of things that I'm gonna have to be watching out for. And I fully understand that when I'm closing the distance with him, like, it's gonna be eat one to give a few. That's just what it is.
So it can air live here in the U.S. You will have to compete, like I mentioned earlier, in the morning hours over there in Singapore. Something that never happens in a fight for fighters here in the U.S. or North America and stuff like that, or even Europe. Is there any special adjustments you have to make beforehand to like your usual, what will be your usual fight week, usual fight day, like regimen and schedule, so you can peak sort of in the morning hours? When particularly during the morning are you supposed to fight? Like 7 a.m., 8 a.m., 9 a.m.?
It'll be, I think the card starts at like 8:30, so I'm the third fight, so you plan on like maybe like 9:30s by the time I'll probably fight, which honestly isn't that big of a deal, because when like in my day-to-day for 8 weeks, I'm working 17.5-hour days, right? Wow. Like, because I have a full-time job. I get up in the morning and I train from like 7 a.m. to about 8:30 in the morning. And then I work all day. Then I get off work around 3:30, 4 o'clock, and then I kiss the wife and kid, and I'm up at training at 5:30, right? So like, as far as like times and like things, like I'm already, like, my workout times kind of correlate to the time we're fighting anyway. Yeah. Like, and actually, if you look at what 9:30 in the morning in Singapore is like 5:30 or 6 o'clock at night where I'm at in Arizona. So like either way is when my body was peaking. Like, I went to bed at like 3 o'clock last night. Driving from the plane, I was up at like 7. I was wide awake. So and it's just because I got to my body's used to being awake. So And I don't really put too much stock into that because, he's dealing with the same thing, right?
Sure.
And like the last fight that I had with Aguilan was probably the most adversity-filled fight week that I've ever had. I got really bad food poisoning Tuesday night, which I knew it wasn't COVID. I just had my COVID test. And
Okay.
Yeah, if you would have seen me Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, you're like, there's no way this guy's fighting. Like, my coach looked at me and he's like, what do we do? We take it hot. Like, I was bad. And then not getting a warm-up. There's just all these other things that were going into it. I mean, Aguilan being a friend, right, and then fighting him. Like, it was just – so whatever, like, gets put my way now, like, I don't care. It's just – there's a dude with 2 legs, 2 arms, and he needs air to breathe. So, it is what it is.
Now, you are on the lead card for the main card event, which airs on Bleacher Report Live. There are only, as I see now, 3 fights on the main one on TNT card. As an American, considering TNT's history in American sports, while happy to be on Bleacher Report Live, were you like, damn, couldn't we just get our fight on the main card too so everyone could see me on TNT? Damn, one.
Yeah. Honestly, my initial reaction was I thought one kind of missed an opportunity because I'm in the military.
Yeah, come on.
I think they missed an opportunity, but I'm just happy to fight. Like, and the fact that I'm a part of it, like I get to do some of my medicals later on with Eddie Alvarez, which I'm pretty stoked about. Nice. I've never met him. I've met Mighty. One of the most genuine, humble dudes you'll meet in your life. Yeah. But yeah, I'm pretty stoked to share the card. Obviously, Rod Tang. Like, there's some killers on this card. So Rubrug, like, there's all these guys are cool. So so because it's such a big card, prelims or not, like, yeah, I'm with the stars. So it's pretty cool. But yeah, I thought they kind of missed an opportunity. But whatever. They don't pay me to do the scheduling. They pay me to fight. So True. I'll do that.
For a guy that's been around as long as you have a good experience, fighting at the highest level, mentioning that, meeting Eddie and Demetrius, are there times that even you, a professional for this long, still get a little starstruck when you come across certain names like Eddie Alvarez, Demetrius Johnson? Do you geek out a little bit?
Oh, of course. Every time I see, because the thing is, like, it's kind of different when they're in your weight class, right? Because, it's like, even then, like, I don't really do the mental edge thing, like the whole meat mugging and, oh man, he looked at my Instagram photo, so he must be scared of me. It's like, shut up. We signed a contract. Yeah. We're gonna fight. Like, it doesn't matter, right? So I didn't really buy into that. But especially when they're not in your weight class, like I don't care. Like I remember I met like Francis Ngannou. I geeked out. I remember like Stephen Thompson. Like I cornered some of my buddies when they were fighting in the UFC. And like I remember when I got to meet Ben Askren. Like I always like geek out. I don't care. Like, these guys are world class people in my profession, right? Yeah. So it's just it's amazing to be able to put I'm fighting on the same stage as these people. So it's kind of eye opening at times too, and a reminder to just be in the moment, because this isn't gonna. These moments are fleeting.
If you enjoyed this edition of Jason Burgos' Back Talk, you can follow and subscribe on YouTube, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Player FM, and many more podcast formats.